Hello and welcome to the program. I'm Joker Rogers. South Africa and Kenya have resolved a long-standing visa dispute, meaning Kenyans will now be able to visit South Africa visa-free for up to 90 days in a calendar year. The new agreement, set to take effect on January the 1st, was announced by both presidents in Nairobi, Kenya, as South Africa President Cyril Ramaphosa makes his first official trip to the country. South Africans already get free visas on arrival in Kenya, while Kenyans are charged and required to provide proof of sufficient funds and return flight tickets. Both leaders also praised the Ethiopia peace agreement signed last week in South Africa and brokered by the African Union, appealing to the parties to ensure full implementation of the agreement.
We laud the just concluded agreement between Ethiopia government and the Tigray People's Liberation Front, brokered by the African Union and mediated by President Olusegun Obasanjo and Uhuru Kenyatta and former Deputy President of South Africa, Phumzile Mlambo Ngcuka.
As many of our countries on the African continent are currently suffering a great deal from the ravages of climate change. As you correctly pointed out, the droughts that Kenya is experiencing now are unprecedented. And similarly, the floods and the droughts that South Africa is currently experiencing now are unprecedented. And this just goes to show that climate change is serious, but at the same time, we need to make sure that the more developed economic countries that have contributed greatly to the climate damage should be the ones who carry the burden of making sure that the loss and the damage that developing economic countries like South Africa and Kenya are properly compensated, and that those countries live up to the commitments that they have made.
Thank you. Thank you. Congratulations.
Let's get more on these issues. Joining us now is Kenyan journalist Brian Wenda. Brian, thank you for joining us today on Network Africa.
Thank you very much. This is Brian Wenda, all the way from Nairobi, Kenya. It is true what you have said. Now, up to 4.5 million Kenyans have been affected by the ongoing drought in the country. Now, up to 2.5 million livestock have also died only this year due to the ongoing drought that has been caused because of the 2-year period that has not received substantive rainfall. Now, in South Africa, to be specific, South Africa has had some cyclone episodes actually early this year, 2022, where up to 890 people perished and lost their lives. Now, 2.8 million people were also affected due to the cyclone. Moving even closer to home, floods also affected people in South Africa, with a total number of 459 people who died out of the floods, and also 40,000 others were affected due to the floods. Now, these floods, according to President Cyril Ramaphosa of South Africa, he said that is the biggest tragedy that they ever saw as a nation and also as an administration. Now, all this pushed the two heads of state, I'm talking about President Cyril Ramaphosa all the way from South Africa, and our president here from Kenya, President William Ruto, to attend the COP27 with one clarion call that led the developed countries and led also the agreement that was made way before the COP27. I'm talking about the Glasgow COP26 agreement, and also the previous agreements that were made way before. Let them first be fulfilled, because they say Africa only contributes or only impacts 3% of the global climatic changes, but only Africa is the most affected continent. Now, according to President Cyril Ramaphosa, he said that the first step to making sure that we move ahead and we don't lose, of course, the faith between these playing parties in these climatic action agreements is that let's first implement that. And also he said that the country is optimistic that they can raise up to 90 trillion US dollars worth of money through grant and concessional loans and investment that is in South Africa. And also as a country, South Africa also did give its commitment that it is going to invest in renewable energy and also retire coal power plants and also do more strategic funding partnerships. Now, here in Kenya, it is a quite interesting position because for the first time, we are feeding wild animals. That is the effect of that's first-hand effect of what is happening in Kenya as a result of the climatic changes. Now, up to 1,235 wild animals have, lost their lives. Remember, in Kenya, wildlife and tourism is one of the key earners of the country. And Kenya losing 1,235 wild animals due to the ongoing drought is, a big hit. Right now, the country has put a hold on its development plans and has embarked on a journey to first deliver relief food, which the president also mentioned that last weekend on Saturday and Sunday, the whole cabinet actually went to the northern part of Kenya to feed more than 4.3 million Kenyans who are being affected by the same. And the key pointer for President William Ruto in COP27 was let's decarbonate. And that was the main thing. And also he also hinted that as the coordinator of the Committee of African Heads of State and Government on Climate Change, he hinted that he's going to convene a continental climate conference next year that is going to also give a good roadmap on how Africa, which is the most affected, can, of course, come up and also pick its own itself from the ongoing drought and climate change. That is all from the two heads of state.
All right. So, I mean, there are other issues that are in effect here, such as the visa-free arrival for Kenyans we spoke about earlier. Is expected to begin on the 1st of January. How are Kenyans reacting to not having to show proof of funds and return tickets when going to South Africa?
It is quite interesting. Three types of reactions that have been seen since yesterday's declaration. First, a predominant number of Kenyans have said that, the move is welcome by the fact that these will help also the free movement of Kenyans to South Africa and South Africans to Kenya. There's also another clique of Kenyans who say that this move came in late because, remember, South Africans have been able to come to Kenya since 2017, actually, for the last 5 years, visa-free. Yeah. But then we Kenyans were not able to access movement to South Africa visa-free. And others do say, we hope that guys, you're not going to say we're still working on it and let's implement it. So, it is a mix of reactions from here in Kenya.
So what do you think the impact would have on the relations between the two countries?
First, Kenyans do feel that, of course, most Kenyans have always gone south to always continue to further their education. Quite a number have done so. Others have also gone for investment purposes. And of course, this means that, of course, there has been an imbalance of trade in between the two. When South Africans will easily access, Kenya, but then Kenyans will not easily access. And now it is the turn for South Africans to, give their hand and return the hand, and of course, and say that Kenyans, you're welcome to South Africa. And it is a quite interesting conversation because 90 days in South Africa without a visa, Kenyans can do so much. Kenyans are industrious. I won't lie to you, yes.
Right, Brian, thank you for your time today on Network Africa.
Thank you too.
Well, staying in South Africa, hundreds of thousands of civil servants in the country have embarked on a nationwide strike over wages and working conditions. It's reported as the first major strike by public servants in a decade and is expected to cause disruptions in some government departments and airports. Members of the Public Servants Association had for weeks staged lunchtime pickets, but have now decided on a full-scale shutdown in major cities across South Africa. It comes after a breakdown in negotiations between the union and the government. The union is holding firm on its demand for a 6% increase in wages, rejecting the government's final offer of 3%. In Burkina Faso, the transitional prime minister has replaced 2 ministers only 2 weeks after the formation of a new government. The Minister for Industry and Trade, as well as the one in charge of lands and housing, were replaced through a decree read out on national television. Donatien Ngalo's appointment as trade minister had faced opposition by traders' associations who accuse him of malpractices as a former head of the country's National Union of Traders. He has now been replaced by an executive of BCEAO, the central bank of the common regional currency. Prime Minister Apollinaire Kyelem Dentambela formed the first transitional military government under Captain Ibrahim Traoré on October the 25th. Before replacing the 2 ministers, he had justified their appointment, saying that a background check had found nothing incriminating against them. The World Health Organization says no food or medicine has reached the Ethiopian region of Tigray despite the signing of a ceasefire last week. According to the Director General of the WHO, Dr. Tedros Ghebreyesus, nothing is moving as he was expecting food and medicine to start flowing immediately after the ceasefire. He says that's not happening. Dr. Ghebreyesus, who comes from Tigray, also called for the restoration of telecom, banking, and other basic services. The United Nations has accused Ethiopia of using starvation as a weapon of war in Tigray, where it says a humanitarian blockade put 90% of the population at risk. However, an Ethiopian official says Dr. Ghebreyesus is trying to undermine the peace agreement and that food and medicine are reaching Tigray. Also, that electricity and telecom services had been restored in some areas. In the meantime, the World Health Body says the primary focus this time in Uganda is to strengthen different efforts in containing the Ebola outbreak in the country. There's been 135 confirmed and 21 probable cases in 8 different districts, with 53 confirmed and 21 probable deaths. So far, 62 patients have recovered as efforts in the district of Mubende appears to be paying off.
In the coming days, WHO will invite low and middle-income countries to express interest in receiving Technovirimat free of charge. With vaccines, we have eradicated smallpox, pushed polio to the brink, and once feared diseases like diphtheria, tetanus, measles, and meningitis are now easily prevented. And yet, according to WHO's Global Vaccine Market Report, published today, most of the vaccines that are most important for responding to outbreaks of deadly diseases could face supply risks globally. Although manufacturing capacity worldwide has increased, it remains highly concentrated, as the COVID-19 pandemic has demonstrated. 10 manufacturers provide 70% of the world's vaccines. For example, the global supply of the combination vaccine against measles, mumps, and rubella is highly dependent on just 2 manufacturers. WHO is calling on governments around the world to expand research and manufacturing outside its traditional centers.
Welcome back. 2 people have been killed and 10 others kidnapped by members of the Allied Democratic Forces in Kabasha area near the city of Beni in northeastern Democratic Republic of Congo. This comes in the wake of aerial assaults by Congolese forces targeting militia groups in Runyoni, Musangati, Chanzu and Bunagana in the troubled east. There are reports that several villages seized by rebels in Rutshuru have been cut off, leaving residents without access to food and emergency services. According to aid agencies, more than 90,000 people have been displaced by renewed fighting in the region in the past few months. The government has accused neighboring Rwanda of backing M23 groups by providing them with logistic and financial support. Rwanda has repeatedly denied those allegations. In Nigeria, Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu of Lagos State in the southwest has promised to continue to export the nation's rich heritage to the global market, thereby attracting foreign investment into the local creative and entertainment sector. The governor made this comment at the Eco NAFEST 2022, hosted by the state government. Top government officials, foreign envoys, traditional rulers and school children made the roll call of guests at the festival's opening ceremony held at the Mobolaji Johnson Pavilion in Onikon.
The Mobolaji Johnson Arena, Onikon, Lagos, is full to capacity. Troops from 29 states of the Federation, dressed in different cultural attires, are attending the 35th National Festival of Art and Culture, organized by Lagos State in collaboration with the National Council of Arts and Culture. One of the first-class kings in Yoruba land, the Oni of Ife, Oba Adeyeye Ogunwusi, is also in attendance as Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu and his team joined the crowd to celebrate the day.
This NAFES is going to be a new beginning to change the history of our country. What has gone wrong in Nigeria, we want to tap it back.
With agitations from various socio-political groups, one of the key messages here is peaceful coexistence.
It is imperative for every one of us to be reminded that a peaceful coexistence is very integral to development, and as such, we must jointly pursue everything that will guarantee the peace of everyone.
With just months to the 2023 general elections, Governor Sanwo-Olu asked participants to support leaders that will unify the country and bring back the spirit of togetherness.
As we celebrate Nigerian heritage and cultural diversity here today, my clarion call is that we take this as an opportunity to elect leaders who will recognize and take advantage of our rich culture, our multicultural heritage, our language, to unify us as a people and as a nation, which was the intention of our founding fathers.
This year's event makes Lagos a full-time host of NAFEST, a cultural fiesta initiated in 1970 to foster national integration, strengthen understanding and unity among diverse ethnic groups, and promote peaceful coexistence.
And in East Africa, the Bukoba airport in northwestern Tanzania has reopened after being closed following a plane crash that left 19 people dead. The passenger plane crashed into Lake Victoria as it attempted to land at the airport on Sunday. A local administrator says the first passenger plane was expected to land at the airport on Thursday. Technical advisors from aircraft manufacturer ATR have launched an investigation into the crash. French civil aviation safety investigation experts have also been deployed to the country. The aircraft was operated by Precision Air, Tanzania's largest privately owned passenger airline. It's been operating on the Dar es Salaam-Bukoba route since 1994. And the impacts of climate inaction are claiming lives and livelihoods, and it's the people who are least responsible for the climate crisis that are bearing the brunt. These are the words of Elizabeth Watuti, founder of Green Generation Initiative, who watched in dismay as natural habitats, including Kenyan forests close to her childhood home, suffered extensive damage. Now she has turned to a life of activism.
6 years after starting the environmental advocacy group, Green Generation Initiative, Elizabeth Watuti is one of Kenya's most ardent voices in the struggle against climate change. A voice she's hoping will be heard by world leaders gathered in Egypt for the COP27 Climate Summit.
Then we have to ensure that there's a great representation and participation of the voices across the African continent, and not just the participation, but it has to go further beyond and make sure that the outcome that we get out of COP27 has a reflection of the present needs of the African continent.
And it is the people who are least responsible for the climate crisis that are bearing the biggest brunt.
Watuti was one of the young people calling for urgent action as the UN Climate Conference marked its traditional Young and Future Generations Day.
Failure of industrialized nations to meet their climate targets is actually a gross injustice to the young people, to all generations, and also to the people that are on the front line of this crisis. Because for us, we are not waiting for the impacts to hit in the future. It's happening right now. We are in a climate emergency.
Wahuti is just one of several people or groups being creative about their views on the worsening climate crisis. She has channeled her frustration and sadness over the damage to natural habitats, including Kenyan forests close to her childhood home, into a life of activism. COP27 started in Sharm el-Sheikh, Egypt on November the 6th and is expected to end on November the 18th.
And on a different note, in the United Arab Emirates, African fashion designers looking to enter the Middle East market will soon have a platform dedicated to them as organizers of the Africa Fashion Week Middle East announced plans to kick off in 2023.
African designs on display at the Innovation Hub, DIFC, as organizers of Dubai-based initiative Africa Fashion Week Middle East give industry stakeholders, influencers, and the press a taste of what the platform is set to bring to the fashion scene in the region. This soiree is the first step towards bringing the event, first imagined in 2020, to life.
And we realized that there is a gap in the market where we could actually create a solid, sustainable platform to encourage and engage with the best of creatives of Africa to come and find their spots in the Middle Eastern markets.
Tando Magumise, a founding partner and fashion designer, has lived in Dubai for a decade and understands the need for such a platform created to support brands like her Untombi Couture.
The vision is not just a short-term vision of come and see a fashion show, oh, that's lovely, and walk away. The vision is let's create a platform that allows African designers to tell their own stories, empower them through the platform, and extend into the global market. You will find that a lot of African designers, it's not about the talent not being there. They have everything. But breaking barriers to entry is not the easiest thing. So platforms like this are very important. And I also think because we understand and come from that culture as well, we can marry the two because we've been here a long time. We understand how the global market works. So we can actually be an enabling system for these designers whilst also relating to where they're coming from.
New brand Kiza Bespoke's arrival is perfectly timed to be part of the showcase.
That was when Kiza Bespoke was born.
Africa has a lot of story to tell through their fashion, the culture and all that. And a lot of fashion is derived from the environment. So what we're looking to do, apart from making suits, we also use local fabrics to express our ideas and our thoughts. We also look at how we can mix and match the international flavor with the African touch as well. So we're bringing something completely different into the Dubai space, and I'm so excited about it. And I believe the market will be so happy to have us add to the flavor.
tour, and South Africa's Palesa Mukbang also took turns on the runway. The first edition of the Africa Fashion Week Middle East will hold in Dubai come February 2023. From Dubai in the United Arab Emirates, Maya Wadegoke for Channels Television.
That's Network Africa today. Thank you for watching. I'm Joka Rogers.